Welcome back to Retro Rebound. Today we're talking about Resident Evil 4. It's 2021. I've played it for the first time ever, despite playing a ton of Resident Evil games in my history. And joining me is none other than Brett Medlock of Nintendo Enthusiast to walk me through everything and essentially interview me on my entire playthrough again for the first time. Brett, thank you so much for joining me in this video.
Dude, thanks for having me. This is really exciting. This is
Absolutely.
rare, too. This is rare.
I know, right? Everyone I've told that I'm playing this has said it's my favorite game of all time, or, oh my god, how have you not played it? So here we are today. This was your idea, so thank you for bringing this to my attention. I was like, this is the perfect time to play Resident Evil 4. Yep, Halloween month. And like, I want to start off there, right? It was a lot spookier than I anticipated. I thought this was everyone said it was an action romp akin to Resident Evil 8, I guess. And I thought to myself, well, that doesn't sound too creepy. I was wrong. This is a little creepy.
It's so creepy. Especially, like, not even just the sense that, like, when you're exploring and trying to figure out puzzles and stuff, but the actual combat can come off creepy as well. Because, I don't know, the way the enemies, they mumble their words and you hear them, especially when you're wearing headphones. It's super creepy.
Yeah, I love the attention to detail there. When I got to the castle, that was the moment where it really sank in that I liked this game a lot.
Oh,
because that's when the atmosphere took over. You had the cultists, and I thought to myself, you can see how impactful Resident Evil 4 was for the rest of the series, because now I know, wow, they borrowed so much from it in Resident Evil 8 down to its very structure of the village, the castle, the factory, everything. Yeah, it totally warped my perspective on the series. But on a creepy front, I understood now why people liked it, because it really was that perfect, hard to imitate mix of this is scary, but this is also very fun and has action with it.
Yeah, it was a big change for the series, but I feel like it was ultimately for the better, and I feel like ever since Resident Evil 4, they've never quite nailed it to this degree. I love a bunch of Resident Evil games after RE4, but ever since this game, I've always just been like, where's the Resident Evil 4-like game? Like, Resident Evil 5 was similar, but it went to action. Yes. And then Resident Evil, I don't know, like Revelations and stuff, it just didn't have the perfect blending of everything like this game does.
Yeah, and it's really hard to imitate all of that. And there's always been the talks of remakes, and I thought that's how we could really tap into the gameplay here for Resident Evil 4, because so many people go back and forth on if this game needs to be remade, and I'm honestly of the mindset after playing for the first time, I don't think it does, because when I first started this game, Brett, I was thinking, you know, these controls are really wonky. I don't like them. Yeah, this is why they're probably going to remake it. The environments feel very claustrophobic. But as I got deeper into the game, I realized that was really a part of the design. Like, it was accessible enough to be able to aim and shoot, but I had to be smart about it. You know, I had to run around and use a quick turn for that 180, blast them away. You had to be very tactical with it. And I feel like if you were able to, even akin to Resident Evil 2 Remake, you know, slip and slide around easily while aiming down your sights, that it could end up becoming too easy, where part of this game, what I loved about it so much was its challenge. I thought it was very difficult.
Yeah, it is a really hard game. Like, definitely.
One thing I also liked about it, beyond its difficulty, was the weapons, the attachments, the upgrade system. Yeah. Very arcadey is how I would refer to it. And I think all of it connects into, again, what we were just kind of talking about, where there is a creepy element, but once you detach from that and you start going to the store where the merchant just happens to be hanging around every corner. Yeah, he's like, what are you buying? I'm like, oh, everything.
Got something that might interest you.
Yeah. And so I just loved how that's the one thing that I recognize immediately in my case from Resident Evil 8. I went, oh, okay, now I know where they got it from. Because when I played Resident Evil 8, just quick story here, I really didn't like that. I was kind of shaken up, thinking to myself, why are there enemies dropping points and stuff? But now I know where they got it from, because a lot of people dug it, and I didn't. But now, knowing there's a heritage there, it makes a lot more sense to me, and I appreciate it more. But yeah, I loved going in there, getting the weapon upgrades, and finding out after I fully upgraded my Red 9 that there's an exclusive weapon upgrade for each of them. That was so cool.
Dude, I love that. And that's the reason why I played through this game so many times as a kid, was because I always just wanted to upgrade every single gun, because all your progress carries over. And getting those exclusives are really awesome in a lot of cases, like blasting through like 6 people with a handgun. Like, it's really awesome.
Yeah, especially my favorite was the shotgun, because it just took it over the top, where now I could hit someone as if I was point blank with them, but they would be across the room. And it just, it was so empowering. It was such a a fun time.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the story too. I'm sure we'll wrap back into the gameplay because that's really a superstar here. One of my complaints with this game, I want to know if you agree as someone who's replayed it over and over, where you're probably more familiar with the lore, the backstory, is a lot of it was told through text logs, very few cutscenes. It seemed very much in the background, and I thought that was a shame because what I started to notice was what was happening to this village at the start of the game was, you're almost effectively just going around massacring people. It's kind of humanizing in a way because, granted, with the parasite in them and how it's impossible to revert after a certain point in time, it's like, yeah, you're kind of killing, I put this in quotes, zombies, but these are people who are being forced to attack you without much control. And I thought that was really interesting for a Resident Evil story because typically it's just like, oh, it's a bunch of undead, go kill them. While this felt more grounded, but I wish that, and I hope that when they do, if they do a remake, that this gets more of a spotlight, because I would read some of like Lewis's memos and start piecing things together. At the end, there's like one final memo that ties into why you're on this island, what's happening here. I don't want to spoil it for those who haven't played it, even though it's very old. I'm sure many have. I still want to make sure there's those out there who are like me and wondering if they should hop in. But I did find the story interesting. I want to know if you felt the same thing. Is this one of the reasons why you really like the game?
I honestly, like, some of my favorite stories in games are the ones that are a super simple premise. All Leon knows is he's supposed to go get the president's daughter. That's the main goal. Like, and then everything else, like everything, like all the stuff that they can add in throughout that adventure is just like bonus, in my opinion. Kind of like a game like God of War, how the premise is just get the mother's ashes to the top of the mountain, and then every single thing that happens in between there is just kind of like extra, and it just like makes the world feel more enriched. That's kind of like how I view this. There is a lot of like things that don't make sense. Like Leon was hesitant not to shoot one guy, but then the rest of them he just like blows their heads off. I feel like if they
sorry, go on.
I was gonna say, like, I feel like if they remake it, like, he should probably be hesitant a few more times than just one time.
That's so true. And that's like the product of being an old game, and one of the reasons I think so many people love it is that's just never going to be captured again because everyone's so focused on realism, immersing the player, where I just wonder if they're gonna, if they do this remake, bring back the lines like, I'm not your bro, or things along those lines. Or I think he said, no thanks, bro. That's what it was, not I'm not your bro. That was Final Fantasy VII Remake.
I've been expecting you, my brethren.
No thanks, bro.
I just liked how it managed to mix humor in there at times.
Definitely.
There was some cheesiness there. There were times where I saw moments in this game where I went, yeah, in 2021, this probably wouldn't fly, so I doubt they're going to keep that. Like interactions with Lewis and Ashley, I went, I don't think so, or Leon hitting on Hunnigan after a mission, and
that's so random.
I'm just like, dude, at the end of the game, why? Like, after
you're
everything,
kind of cute without those glasses.
It's like, oh, okay, Leon, all right, sure. But I one thing I thought was kind of surprising, I want to tie this back to the gameplay, is the balance of ammo that was coming your way. One thing I learned accidentally, was I was using the handgun a lot. I ran out of ammo, and I was constantly stacking up rifle ammo. What happened is they stopped dropping ammo entirely because I had so much rifle ammo in my inventory. Yeah, and so I had to end up starting to burn through some of that to get other ammo to drop. And I like that because I feel like that's a difficulty spike, if you will, that makes sense, where in something like Resident Evil 7, they would look at your ammo and then oftentimes base the enemy's health off of that. So if you had like 9 shots, some enemies would take 7, so then it would bring you down to 2. It's like, oh, it's tense. It felt artificial at times, and that's as someone who loves Resident Evil 7. So I liked how they balanced this game, even though it was very difficult, and I died tons of times. Tons of times, man. I have a friend, I was telling you, who plays on professional, but
yeah, that's hard, dude.
I don't know
even
how.
For me.
I don't know how, because I was dying so many times. It was a legitimately difficult game.
Yeah, it's super hard. Like, I've played it like probably over 50 times, and that's not even exaggerating. And I still die like often. Like, I don't know, the way they balance things out, like you were saying, it's like they know how strong you are, how how prepared you are, and then based on that, they throw a certain amount of enemies at you and that kind of thing.
Yeah. What was your favorite area in Resident Evil 4?
So I like to separate it into 3 different parts: the village, the castle, and the island. And out of all those, I like the village the most. I think it just sets that tone. That's like what the hell's going on in this town, you know?
Right.
And back then it was before like we like analyze things, and like I don't know, it's just a little more corny now when you look at things. But
right.
yeah, but like back then the village was just amazing. The castle, it's awesome. Like I love everything about it, but I think it's my least favorite out of the 3 because I really love the island as well.
Interesting. See, for me, I think the island was the least favorite because that's the moment in the game where I feel they went so action heavy that it felt very race to the finish-y, where I loved especially the village, like you said perfectly, the tone, the atmosphere there. It really just set things up to be a strong game. Granted, though, he said, "Where'd everyone go? Is it bingo night or something?" And I was like, what's going on, man? But beyond that, it was a really good tone set. And then like I told you earlier, when I got to the castle, that's when I really started to fall in love with the game. And so I felt like the first 2/3 of the game were excellent, superb. And then the last part was okay. It was solid.
The island, I really like the start of it, like that facility that has those, I think they're called Iron Maidens in the game. Those creepy things that you have to shoot with the rifle with the infrared scope.
Yes,
like
yes,
that
those
whole
are cool.
part I love. It's like it's probably the scariest part of the game for me, to be honest. Like those creepy ass monsters.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was thinking this whole time while playing it, because we have the VR release coming up very soon. In fact, as this video goes live, it's out today, so we thought this would be a cool celebration of it. But I was thinking of that moment specifically as like one of those creepy times where if you have a VR headset on, like it's gonna be
oh
awesome
my god,
to be
the
playing
noises
that game.
they make, like
I know,
like these weird noises.
It's wild. It really is. So what did you think of some of the characters in the game? I know Leon's a superstar, but was it for you that this game he became such a, I guess, an idol in gaming, or was it 2? Like, was this the game that really kickstarted some of your love for him?
Yeah, for me personally, Resident Evil 4 is a character that I love, and this specific version, because with Capcom, they're constantly changing how the characters sound, how they look. So this Leon is my Leon, you know? Yeah. And I don't think it's just because of the voice acting, but we were talking about how the writing was kind of corny before, and I think a lot of that actually came from the English people translating the game. Like, I've heard the bingo part isn't actually in the Japanese version. That's like the little things they added. Like, where's everyone going? Bingo? Like, I heard that was only in the English version. Now, I'm not 100% positive, but it's little things like that I heard that they changed, and I feel like that really gave these characters more personality. And I don't know, Resident Evil's the best when it's once again the perfect blending of serious and corny at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I love Leon's character in this game too, because I think we've sort of fallen into this pit in modern gaming where every character needs to have like an emotional tragedy tied to them, and they have to really go through some serious stuff and have to have this arc. But Leon starts off pretty capable, and he's capable the whole way through. And there are moments where I think it was when you like leap out of the train cart and grab the edge. He jumps a mile, but that's like the only time I can think of in my head where he has this superhero level moment where I go, okay, all right, Capcom, let's settle down here. But other than that, I feel like they had a character that was just grounded. And one of the things I loved that let me connect to the characters more, it's really on a mechanical level, and it sounds weird, but I'm going to try my best to explain it, is they took inspiration from Metal Gear with the intercom system where you'd see him like take out his phone and they'd be having portraits side by side. For me, this is like one of my favorite ways in gaming to see characters communicate with each other. I don't know what it is about it, but I love it. And so to me, seeing like the portraits next to each other and these characters all like talking,
they're all FaceTiming each other.
Yeah,
talking
especially
trash.
when you're FaceTiming like Salazar and stuff.
It's so random. Like, how does Salazar have what Leon has?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, but it's one of those. I think part of the reason I loved it is because a lot of what makes Resident Evil 4 click is your ability to disconnect certain parts of your brain. That's one of them where it's like, why does Salazar or I forgot Lord Sadler, why do they have phones or these intercom devices and they're telling me their plans? Yeah, I don't know, right? I certainly don't know, but it allowed for those characters to build a little bit over time, where one of the things I was thinking with Resident Evil is it was sort of missing a main villain, but eventually it started to really crop up with Sadler and with, I think more so Salazar. He seemed to be the most prominent one in the entire game. With that, speaking of villains, did you have like a favorite boss?
Oh my God, there's so many good ones. Like there are so many memorable. Like El Gigante was like, he's like the big monster in the village, and then the lake, that monster, that's like a memorable one.
My favorite boss was probably the one that it was called, actually I don't know what it was called, but it was it was the thing that like would climb through the barn, and it had its entire spine stretched out.
Yeah, and like when everything's on fire. What's his name? It's escaping me right now.
Yeah, I don't know the name, but it's the main village boss is what I would call it. Where
the
he's
big
really...
cheese is what Leon or Lewis calls him.
Yeah, there you go, the big cheese, and he just stalks you the whole beginning of the game. He finally traps you in the barn by yourself. Number one, I love the setup for it because I was not expecting a boss fight there, but I thought it felt really natural. But number two is there was two phases to it. There was one where he's following you around and on the ground. Then you think you kill him, half his body disconnects, and now he's climbing from the ceiling. And it starts to get smoky because the barn's on fire. That was where I thought, okay, this game's actually kind of scary. Again, like that's a demented looking enemy. That thing is disgusting. And that takes some real good creature design to accomplish, especially nowadays when we see so much in such detail. To accomplish that back in 2005, I can only imagine what it was like when people saw it for the first time then. But this was easily my favorite boss in the game. I just thought, again, the first part of the game, I think I line up with you, is so important. It just sets up the tone, and it's a boss fight like that really, I feel, does the trick.
Yeah, that part is super awesome. And a lot of people, like when they play Resident Evil 4, I don't think they're thinking just how old this game is. Like, it came out on GameCube, and it still somehow, I think, looks like an early PS3, Xbox 360 game. I think, like, graphically, it still looks really good. Like, for, I don't know, a GameCube game that was, like, a third-party game, you know. And, I don't know, there's just so many things about it that I think still age incredibly well. I still honestly like the aiming. Like, I don't even think I would be upset if Resident Evil 9 came out and it had the exact same aiming system as Resident Evil 4. Like,
I agree.
I think it limits you, but the whole gameplay is built around that, and I think it feels perfect. And just having the laser sight, I don't know, just being limited like that, it just makes it more scary in my opinion.
I agree entirely. Yeah, the way it controls is something you'll fight with if you're like me and you're new. You'll fight with it constantly until about a couple hours in you get it and you adjust. And I feel like once you adjust, you realize it doesn't need changing. And the main people who are probably calling for change are the ones who haven't played it a lot.
Or played like the opening like 20 minutes and then got their head chopped off.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's tough. It's a tough game, but I feel like I'm hesitant about this remake. So we'll see in due time, but overall, I feel like we've covered everything from bosses to story to villains to gameplay. And I gotta say, this was an excellent time playing through for the first time. For those who are curious, I played it on my PlayStation 5 with a physical copy for PS4. So that's how I went through it. For those who are wondering about platinum trophies, there's only 12 trophies, strangely, for this game. And
it's a terrible list. Absolutely terrible list.
Really disappointing on that front. I was surprised. I thought, oh, this is a classic. And I was thinking of Resident Evil 5's trophy list. Granted, it was carrying over its PS3 version, but still, I thought they would revamp the whole list for 4, but only 12? That was surprising.
Exactly. And they brought it to Switch and put achievements in the game, and it's still the exact same achievements as the PS3 version. They just, like, come on.
Yeah. It's funny. This is a game that continues to get re-released on the level of Skyrim or GTA, but no one really talks about it because that's how much I think Resident Evil 4 is loved. No one complains about it like they do with the other two.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a great game. And I did want to shout out Ada. I don't think we talked about her at all. She's probably one of my favorite video game characters out there across the whole Resident Evil franchise, you know. Yeah,
she's one of the mainstays when you think about characters like Carlos or Sheva, these plugged-in characters, Jake in Resident Evil 6, that just exist for a story plot point, and then they never appear again. It's like they just serve a purpose and go. So yeah, I think the mainstays in Resident Evil are iconic for a reason. What did you like about Ada the most?
Honestly, I love characters in games where you're not 100% sure if you can trust them all the time. like Morgan in Dragon Age, like characters like that. How you don't know if, I don't know, are they going to turn on me sooner or later? Like, they're kind of mysterious. I don't know, I just love characters where you don't really know what to expect out of them. And Ada, she's like that throughout the entire franchise. Like, she's always doing something like good, and then by the end of it, she like screws everyone, you know?
Exactly. I kind of thought of her as like the 007 in a way of Resident Evil, the way she's got these gadgets with her constantly, and she's so like smooth about it.
In heels.
Yes, and in heels. And I agree. I think she was one of the more interesting characters in just not only this game, but the series. And we talked about it before we recorded, but yeah, I never played Separate Ways or the other operation with Ada.
Yeah, it's like a mini mission.
That's something we'll maybe have to get to in a part 2, perhaps, depending on how this does and what people think. But Brett, this has been a great time talking Resident Evil 4 with you. If those of you out there are like me and you haven't played Resident Evil 4, number one, dirt cheap, about 20 bucks, and get it physically 20 bucks. As Brett said, play it. Absolutely worth your time. It's aged really well. There are certain parts that I think can feel a little bit better, but there's nothing I felt like I was fighting with. It is amazing how a game that's 16 years old now has aged this well. It's crazy. It really is crazy. So please trust, give it a shot. Very cheap buy, not a long game. It took me 14 hours to complete. Highly recommended. Brett, thank you so much for joining me for this. Where can people who are interested in your work find you?
I make videos over on the Nintendo Enthusiast YouTube channel. Pretty much upload there 2 or 3 times a week. And then other than that, I'm running things over on the Nintendo Enthusiast website. So yeah, that's pretty much everything.
Right on. I'll have that all linked down below. Please do consider checking out Brett and his work. Brett, thank you again for joining me in today's video. And until next time, we'll see you in the next Retro Rebound. Peace out.